Welcome to another episode of the No Ceilings Podcast. I'm Tyler Metcalf, joined as always by Tyler Rucker. Rucker, how are we doing?
Fantastic. Now that we're back talking basketball with Tyler Metcalf. Doing good, sir. How are you doing?
Fantastic.
Great.
The temperature finally got above zero for the first time all week, so that's always exciting. Big things. But no, I'm good. Loving the basketball. That there's a nice little break from some NBA action with the All-Star break, and we're here to discuss how we can fix the I'm kidding. God, I hate that content.
Oh my
so
gosh.
much. It's the worst.
Oh man. Did you watch this year?
No, because it's not
I didn't
for
either.
me.
No interest. I had no interest. The first year ever I had
event for kids or people who just want to relax and have some fun, and I don't know. It's just not for me, so I don't care.
I just zero interest at all. Yeah. It is a legit problem. Like I just was like, no, nothing. Absolutely, like okay. Everyone enjoy. People were asking me what I thought of the new format. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot they did a new format. Like they need to change something. Like it's. I don't know. I have so many ideas sometimes that I'm like, these are so stupid that they probably would work. Like they just need to figure something out different because it's unwatchable.
Yeah, but I don't care. So even if they do change it, it's like, all right, cool. It's an event that doesn't matter. But what does matter, unfortunately, San Antonio Spurs, they're pushed for the play-in tournament and playoffs likely over this year. Victor Wembanyama out for the rest of the season. Just real quickly want to talk about it since that news broke today. Always a bummer, but looks like deep vein thrombosis, aka DVT, in his shoulder. I am not a doctor, but my quick Google search and
Dr. Google
and light reading, pointed me towards this. So I figured, I read it, so I'll share it with you so you don't have to. DVT typically shows up in the lower body, but upper body DVT can happen in people who have Paget-Schroeder syndrome or PSS, typically in young athletes. They get this in the arm when they use repeated motion. Shows up more so in like swimmers, tennis players, baseball players. But that repeated motion causes veins in your neck and shoulder to kind of squeeze and trigger a clot. Blood clots are scary. They're never good. I believe someone shared on Twitter that it's very similar to what Asar Thompson and Brandon Ingram had these past couple years, and they recovered. They were out for the rest of their season, but were able to come back. The more dangerous version is the lower body because the likelihood that clot can release and then work its way back up to the lungs is much higher with the lower body DVT, and it's incredibly rare with the upper body. So I guess good news given what it was, but always a bummer.
It's always scary when you there's a news drop and it's injury related, but it also is like a very long term that none of us know unless we were doctors or in med school. So at first my first reaction, because a lot of people didn't know, is like Vic had some injuries pile up. We talked about it when we were evaluating him as a prospect. Like he's had a kind of a random, like all over the place injury history.
Which is that more or less encouraging? Because it's not like it's like, oh, it's the same foot thing over and over and over and over.
Right.
But it's like, are these random, or is it like, oh my God, his whole body's at risk?
Well, that's where I was getting at, because at first when Shams dropped the tweet, that was the first thing I thought in my head. I was like, oh no, shoulder. I did what everyone else did. I looked at the words I understood, and I'm working on multiple things at once. I'm watching film and I'm like, oh gosh, shoulder, that's. And then I looked and I was like, oh, his injury history, he messed up a right shoulder too. So in my head, I'm like, oh, it's a shoulder problem.
Yeah.
Then later comes it's a blood clot. And I was like, oh, because my first thought was his injury history. But yeah, blood clots are no joke. It's scary stuff, and always a hat tip to medical staffs when you catch them early. And what I was trying to say today, it was like, man, I hope this isn't another chapter of his injury history before I realized it was a blood clot. So, I don't know. I mean, what about you? I feel like I feel better then, but obviously blood clots are really
Yeah,
scary.
I'm just glad they caught it. Hopefully,
Yeah.
it's recover, figure it out, prevent it from figure out whatever blood thinner he needs, and hopefully it's a long and healthy career because he's
Right,
incredible.
right.
And injuries suck, and especially life-threatening ones or ones that could develop into being that serious. They're really scary. So just thankful they caught it. Thankful nothing severe happened, and go on to next season.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if it's ever something that serious, I'm like, always don't play. Like,
Yeah.
just that's a serious. Blood clots are no joke. But it's like they're 23 and 29 right now. That would probably be the easiest decision of all time. Like, Vic, just sit down. Like, we're fine. It's the end of the season. We'll see you next year. Let's get you healthy. Did Chris Bosch have this too?
Yeah,
Or did he have a more extreme?
He had the lower body one, so it's
Gotcha.
bigger
Okay.
risk for kind of detaching and then working its way up towards the lung and hearts.
Because that was
lungs and heart. Only one heart. I don't know why I put a
no, it's
plural
okay.
on that.
It happens. That was the first thing I thought of was Asar Thompson, and then someone else pointed out Brandon Ingram. So if anything, it's a good sign that other players have had this and they're back. They're playing. So yeah, I hope it's just the speed bump, and he's so much damn fun. I hope this is just kind of like okay, just take care of it, get the big guy healthy, and play for 12 years and be one of the best players ever.
Spurs fans, welcome back to the draft community.
Yeah, welcome back. We missed you.
They're currently sitting with the 10th pick, tied with Portland at 23 wins. Portland's at 9th. Chicago's with the 8th pick, 22 wins. Brooklyn at 20, Philly at 20. So they have a real possibility to work their way back into that top 5, top 6 range. On the bright side, I guess. All right, enough of that. We got jam-packed episode today. We're breaking down a couple polarizing small point guards, freshman point guards, and Jeremiah Fears, Jase Richardson, and then we're going overseas and talking about Hugo Gonzalez, Spanish wing, currently playing for Real Madrid. Real quick before we dive into that, just a bit of housekeeping, kind of point you guys in the direction of what's up on the site, what's up on the podcast feed, YouTube channel, all that good stuff. So if you're looking for some in-depth writing, this week over at NoCeilingsNBA.com, Steven wrote about Kaman Maluach. Rowan had a really fun piece with his Ouija Wonderings, covering VJ Edgecombe, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, and so much more. Just such a creative and fun and engaging writing style that Rowan kind of continues to bring to the site. And then Rich provided us with some in-person scouting notes on VCU versus George Washington. I believe Max Scholga had a huge game for VCU in that one, so go check that out. Jam covered Walter Clayton, and Rucker has a big piece on Dylan Harper coming out Friday morning, so keep an eye out for that. Then podcast feed, which you can also watch on YouTube while you're there. Subscribe, hit the like button. Those little things do wonders for us. Corey and Albert broke down Rasheer Fleming and Carter Bryant. Nick and Nathan continued their kind of 10-year draft retrospective. This one was on forwards. It was part 3. That's been a really fun series that Nick has been doing. Go check that out. And then Maxwell and Steven on Monday or Sunday night, if you're watching live, talked about Kaman Maluach, Thomas Sorber, Maxime Reynaud, and a few other guys. Really engaging and kind of interesting group of big men. So go check that out. But with all that said, Rucker, let's dive in. Let's start out. Jeremiah Fears, 6'4" point guard for Oklahoma. Freshman, reclassified up a year. So he turned 18 in the middle of October. Very young, should be in high school right now. Currently averaging 15.5 points, 3.7 assists, 3.9 rebounds, 1.7 steals, 3.7 turnovers, and 43.8, 28.1, 84.4 shooting splits.
Where do you want to start?
You tell me.
He's been a popular name on the line lately. Some people have had some thoughts about if he should go back to school or not. I've tried. Fears' dad's had some fun on the internet today, which had me laughing nonstop. shout out to Jeremy. I get what he was saying, and it was just funny. Kind of everyone overreacts to stuff. But I caught up on his film because you told me you wanted to talk about him, and I was like, "Oh boy, here we go." Metcalf's got that spark,
Well, so
I'm excited.
You originally proposed Jase, which we haven't really talked about, and I thought Fears and Jase were a really fun and kind of interesting pairing to go back and forth on.
Absolutely, I think it's going to be this trio of names was picked for a specific reason because I think a lot of people are going to feel the opposite of how I think me and you are going to feel if I'm guessing, but we'll see how that works. Now, we've talked about Fears before Metcalf. We loved him in the beginning of the year. His first 13 games, I believe, were 13-0. He averaged 18.1 points, 3.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 2.2 steals. Not bad. That was also on 50, 30, 86. And Oklahoma was 13-0. And then me and you talked about the gauntlet's coming. Mm-hmm. If he can survive the gauntlet, we're going to be freaking out because he's going to be in top 5 talks. But we were like, we're ready for him not to accept, to survive. And the gauntlet has been vicious. That was 12 games. They've gone 3-9. They were 13-0. They're 16-10. He didn't play one game, I believe. In that 12 games, he's averaged 12, 4, and 3 with 3.7 turnovers, shooting 37, 26, 84. But I mean, it's not just him because that gauntlet featured about 4 or 5 games in which I think they lost by 20 or more points.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I left the film more encouraged than anything. What did you think? Yeah. Which I was not expecting.
I still like most of his process. The problem is the scoring efficiency is so bad right now. Since January 1st, he has an effective field goal rate of 41.3. It's really tough. But that's also what happens when you are the guy and you're a reclassified skinny freshman point guard. And you immediately go from, oh, who's this kid, to the number 1 bullet on the scouting report. And despite the shot not falling at all, despite the, at-rim finishing getting a little worse, I feel like the way that he's attacking and processing and creating for others and creating for himself and the handle and just the all-around offensive creation hasn't really changed. And I think that's really encouraging. So the scoring numbers suck. In conference play, they're bad. They're flat out bad, and I hate every time they play, and I pull up a box score, and I see they shot 30%, and it's like, God damn it, all right, let's grind through this film. And I never come away from it being like, God, he was dog shit in that game. It's always like, oh, man, he couldn't buy a bucket. He couldn't get one to drop. He's not getting the same foul calls that he got at the start of the year. He can't get a three-pointer to fall. And he looks like he's a little bit in his head on the shot. I still buy the shot long-term. Handful of NBA scouts I've talked to have all said that they still buy the shot long-term. And the common theme with him that I got from all of them was very skinny, needs to get stronger, not worried about it. Incredibly talented, would take him top 20.
Same thing I've heard. Like the exact same thing I've heard. Because we're getting to the time of the year now where you're asking. Everyone's asking. Yeah, I'm sending out text. I'm also getting in text, and I'm not just bragging. It's like now you're starting to be like, hey, what am I missing? And that's my favorite time of the year because if you're puzzled on a guy, you're asking someone to help me see the light. Mm-hmm. And I think Fears is one that I'm like, I watched the film and I was like, I'm still in. Like I thought I was going to be way out from just looking at numbers. And that's why box score chasing is so bad. But it's the role, it's the situation. It's exactly what you said is he is target number 1. It is get Jeremiah Fears out of the game. Like, how do you take him away? And I think he was so awesome in the beginning of the year. He was carrying them. It was awesome. It just, in my opinion, looks like it is way too much right now for him to carry. He, like you said, reclassified. Like a text I got was just stressing, like, he's so young and so talented. Like, I would still, like, I got the same thing. I would still top 20 guy for me easily.
And just the way he plays, despite being so young, there's so much improvisation, and it's not scripted stuff with him. Obviously they run their sets and their offense and all that kind of stuff. But like when he attacks a closeout or gets blitzed out of the pick and roll and stuff, it's not like my option one is gone, so what do I do now? He's constantly stringing together different handle moves, manipulating off-ball defenders, setting up teammates. It's a lot of turnovers, but he's also like really trying to create a lot of stuff out of nothing. And it feels like the vast majority of his turnovers tend to be him taking really high level risks, trying to create something. And, sometimes when you make those acrobatic or wild skip passes, they get picked off.
Yeah. I mean, I sent you a clip. Like, I saw him drive, dish, create for one of his teammates who had a wide open three, and they just like passed it up to give Fears a step back 3 feet beyond the arc as the shot clock is expiring 3. And Fears made it, like, amazing shot. But I was like, what the heck? Like, this guy was wide open. So he's trying. And I think coaches are always going to say, like, we'd rather have to pull a guy's reins back. Like, we'd rather have to pull on the reins to calm them down on these decisions than, they don't play hard and try it all. So I still like him a lot. If anything, my hot take is that this gauntlet might be the best possible thing for him, because he might be going to a better team now that's going to be patient, because they're going to realize, look at this asset we got, and we can stress like the long-term approach because of how young he is and everything.
When we talk about his responsibility level too, he's the only other freshman likely in the 2025 or potentially in the 2025 NBA draft who has a usage rate over 30. The only other one is Cooper Flagg.
I'm just a big buyer. Like, it's the first time I went into a film, I was completely like, I'm expecting to be so out. Because it's what you said. Like, you see the numbers, you see how bad it was. I was like, oh man, this is going to be a brutal watch. Mm-hmm. And I left every bit of it like, okay, is that it? Like, I was like, oh, that's okay. Like, we're all right here. And now, yes, there's people are going to be hearing us and like, what are you guys talking about? Like, there's some shots that need to be fixed. Like, there's some selections where I'm like, you're forcing. But then you kind of see like, man, they're asking him to do everything. And he's trying his best, but this is a young player, and I do feel like that's just a bit of a mountain to put on his shoulders. Like, hey, can you also carry us to be a contending team? Like, they're playing better teams right now, and they're asking him to beat them. And it's it's no dig at the rest of his team, but it's just like, hey, you're running out of firepower. Everybody else has got a little bit more horse in the race, so. I feel fine with him at Metcalf. Like, yes, I've moved him down a little bit on my board, but it's more of like, I thought it was going to be way more. And I just kind of like, man, I like him in this range a lot right now, but I don't know.
Yeah. And like, if I was only looking at the box score, he wouldn't be on my board. Just given the shooting inefficiency over the last 6 weeks. But then you watch the film and you watch the games and watch what he's having to do and how he's doing it. And it's that first 95% of the play. Obviously, it matters whether or not the ball goes in or not. But for someone that young, I'm a little less worried about it at this point in that context. Defensive end, what did you think?
I think battling, it really does seem like a kid that his head's just all over the place. And he
looks exhausted.
He looks exhausted. And I'm not saying like this is in a bad way. I think he's just like, it might be a little bit too much for him right now. And it's not saying he's not tough. You're just throwing a lot at him right now. Now, I'm sure he can handle it and stuff, but when you also just need to like spread it out, like have some others What did you think about the defense? Because I wanted to ask you something else about the offense, but go ahead with the defense because Dr. Defense.
He's not good. He's not a good defender,
Mhm.
but I rarely feel like he isn't trying out there.
Right.
And I can work with that. That can be molded or hid or schemed around in some form or fashion, and he still has a steal rate of 3.3, which is really encouraging. So like, is he a good defender? No. Once he gets stronger, will he improve? Sure. But like that Florida game where they got blown out, they were like in that first half, there were like 3 or 4 threes. The guys just kind of like he contested, stayed in front, and they just kind of knocked it down over him. So, the current his current size and strength combination is going to give him, a pretty discouraging floor, but we're not drafting for just rookie year production. We're drafting for a career or into your second contract. And once he gets into year 3, I don't think it's going to be at the point where it's like, wow, this dude cannot stay on the floor defensively. I never get those vibes. He's just too skinny. The screen navigation needs to improve. But again, a lot of that goes into the strength, and he's just not strong enough right now.
The motor's always full. It's always running. And when he can be this effective defensively just based off of motor and effort and giving a damn, like some staff, some coach will watch him like on film and be like, I can work with this. Like, give me this kid. I can work with it because he's young. Like in scouting and evaluating, we always say like, hey, what happens when the game slows down for him? Like when he hits that next switch, like what happens? I think we always assume that means offensively. It happens defensively too. Like what happens when he starts being a move ahead and understanding what you're trying to do and how important angles are? Because veterans are no idiots. When you get a young rook that's talented on your team, you're like, let me work with them. Let me help them speed up like the learning process. And you see those clips all the time where they're like, hey, this is what they're trying to do on this. So put yourself here. Fears looks like he has that mentality of like, I want to be great. I want to compete. So you can coach that. Teams will buy that. They'll be drooling all over that. So I'm more encouraged with the mistakes he's making because it's high like effort, giving a damn. Like I'm always going to buy on those guys, but there's a lot of stuff he needs to work. But one of the youngest guys in this class, like I'm expecting it. He's way overachieved this year.
Yes.
But we were like, oh my gosh, is this a top 5 pick? Like that's where we are. That's where we were at like 12 games into the year. Like this is another big potential star in this class. This got even better. Then we got a little bit of a reality check, but we were expecting it.
Are you in the kind of camp of you think he should stay, return?
I mean,
I'm just kind of looking at it right now where it's like, I get it either way. I don't think there is a bad decision. I still have him in my top 15. I think he should go. Obviously at the very least test. Everyone should always test if you have the opportunity.
Right.
But
that's the first thing I was going to say. Like you should always test no matter what. If you were 100% going back to school, you should still go test. Like you should just get feedback. And I think I would go if I was him. Yeah. Like I know some people think opposite, but like if he's going to land with a better team, like it's going to help him. If he wants to go back, like I love the prospects that are like, my game can get better. Let me get another year and then already. I never want guys to go too early, but I also think Fears is like a unique situation where like teams are going to understand that want to draft him of like, he's not going to be ready right away. Like we're going to need to be patient. Yeah. He's still so young. And there's always like, I never root for it because it sucks, but there's always the risk of going back and get hurt. And I don't know. I would go. If you were 18 years old and you're a top 20 pick, it'd be pretty tough to be like, let me double down on this. But, that's when you also, a smart player is going to be like, what's the class next year? Is there a lot of good guards? Like, so I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on Jeremiah Fears?
Would you take him in the lotto?
Yes. Yeah, I have him in my lottery right now. I have him at 13.
I would too.
So like right at the edge, obviously depends
Yeah.
on team and fit and all that kind of stuff. If I had 2 picks in the lottery, absolutely. Um,
Oh yeah. If I had 2 picks in the lottery, I might be taking them top 10 with one of those picks.
Yeah.
Because that's a very fun lottery ticket. Oh, what I wanted to ask you before we move on. His shot.
Yeah.
Little bothersome for me. The wide open shot, he was like thinking too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a long,
he's like trying to place it almost.
I'm so open. I've got to make this. Like you could see the gears running, and he had a couple catch and shoot, like quick releases where I was like, oh, this looks good compared to that. Cause you're not thinking. When he had a couple wide open shots, it was just like, you could tell when a guy's like, I've got to make this. Like I get from my confidence, I have to make this. And he like missed 2 of them. And I was like, oh man. And then I think I saw him like off of a handoff or like off a screen, just catch and shoot quick. And I was like, you got to shoot like that. But
yeah,
did you get the same feeling or?
Yeah. And like release points a little low, but and he's mid 80s on his free throw percentage. I think like his floater numbers are really, really encouraging right now. So I don't really have any concerns over like the scoring touch. Release point needs to be improved.
Yeah.
I think once he gets stronger, it'll be less of an issue and just kind of get through this year. But like if I'm an NBA team and I can get him in my strength and conditioning program and with the shooting coach as quickly as possible, I'm very excited.
That's the point where I always have to remind myself is like, he's 18. Of course, he's probably not gonna have the strongest upper body right now. Like, give him time. So yeah, no, I still like Fears. I understand anyone that's a little out. I just I'm watching the tape and I'm like, I still very much would be buying.
Yeah, he's. I'm just kind of at the point with him of like, if I miss on him because I'm too high, then I miss, and it's kind of the inverse of the I'm not even touching him because whatever. If I miss, I miss.
Yep.
This is the optimistic side. Of
right.
All right. Let's move on to Jase Richardson right after a quick ad break.
Do we have to?
All righty. Wow. Well,
have some fun, YouTube. Comments are going to love this one.
All right. Jase Richardson, 6'3", listed. Point guard wing for Michigan State right now, averaging 10.4 points, 1.8 assists, 2.6 rebounds, 0.8 turnovers, and 1.1 stocks on 52.7, 39.3, 87.9 shooting splits. Where do you want to start?
I don't know. No idea. Absolutely no idea.
I want to start on the positive. I love the shot making. I love the scoring efficiency. I saw him in person a couple months ago, and the footwork, the balance, the motor, the activity, the feel, it all really stood out and was all really, really encouraging. I really like the, kind of floater mid-range game that he has, especially coming off screens. I think his kind of scoring instincts off of DHOs and second side pick and roll is really encouraging. And there's some good defensive flashes in terms of footwork and balance and strength and competitiveness and all that kind of stuff that, kind of like Fierce, I think you can long-term kind of continue to build on.
Yeah. He's a headache.
Yeah.
I joked on Twitter today, guys, that we were going to talk about 3 guys. I have 2 players I'm still buying stock on, and I have 1 headache. This is the headache.
Mm-hmm.
I wish he was 6'5".
Oh, God,
I'd settle for 6'4". There's no way 6'3".
I would settle for 6'3".
No way. I really like to play. My problem with Jase is he's a really smart player.
Mm-hmm.
I love him as a change of pace card. That's every time I watch him, I'm like, I'd love him off the bench. And I can't get past that. I'm like, I would love him as the guard off the bench that makes a couple smart plays that really can like bring some energy to the team with just like, he doesn't have to score. He knows where to be. He'd be a joy to play with. But then I'm like, where am I drafting that? And I can't get like very late first round is like the highest I can get for that. The shots, I don't love the shot. I
Really?
Now you can tell me I'm wrong. Yeah, I don't. It's very long loading. It's kind of slow to get going. Now, obviously, he has one of the highest arcs I've ever seen too. It's the biggest rainbow like bomb shot ever, which is like
small.
fantastic. Yes, yeah, it's small, so it's small. He has to get it up. I think sometimes off the bounce, he doesn't know where he's gonna like. He doesn't. It's like getting 80% of the way, and you're like, how do I finish this? Like, how do I finish the play? I also think with there's such thing with guys when I'm watching, you can have that quick first step, but you don't have like burn away speed, like to leave someone in the dust. So many, he gets by guys, and so many guys catch. Oh my gosh. I was like,
by
just
step 3.
100%.
Like he doesn't know how to put guys in jail yet.
No. And it drives me nuts because I'm like, that's going to be even tougher with NBA athletes. Cause I was like, why does everyone catch up on him? Like, it was just driving me crazy watching him today. I was like, he can't put anyone in the dust. And I think it's combining that indecisiveness of like, how do I finish this play? So there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, oh, I'm getting concerned. He's been unbelievable all year coming off the bench, limited minutes. We were like insane efficiency. He started their last 4 games. If you do those 4 games, he had his blow up game against Oregon. He had like 29 where we're like, uh-oh, here comes the Jase Richardson show. If you take that game away, he's averaging in his last 3, now it's small sample size, but 12, 3, and 1 on 46-30. So I don't know. I just, now that's a guy I would say, like, I'd love him to go back. Because I think his body, he needs to fill out his body. Like, he needs to be someone that could throw his body around because I think he's just a little undersized right now.
Yes, one of the reasons I kind of wanted to pair Fears and Jase together in this conversation, because the first half of this episode, we talked about how much Jeremiah Fears has to do. Jase Richardson doesn't really have to do much of anything,
right?
And his entire offense is basically running a weave action or sitting in the corner until the ball swings to him and he runs the occasional DHO or pick and roll. It is a very, very, very simplified role. And at 6'1", 6'2", he's going to have to play point guard in the league. Now, if he goes to a place that already has an established jumbo creator, like a Cade Cunningham, a Jokic, Luka, any of those guys, I get more encouraged about his, long-term effectiveness. But those guys also make literally everyone they play with better. So,
right.
But like you even just looking solely at usage on Michigan State, he is behind Jaden Akins, Frankie Fidler, Trey Holloman, Jackson Kohler, and Jeremy Fears Jr. by at least 3 percentage points per. And guys of his profile typically just don't get drafted in the first round as one and done freshmen. And he'd be one of 19 freshmen from a true high major conference who are 6'3" or shorter to finish with an effective field goal rate of at least 55. So really efficient scorers, but an assist rate of under 15. So we're talking about small off-ball scorers. The only one and done freshman was Jared McCain, who 3-point volume-wise was double what Jase is doing. Jase is at like 6-ish, 6.5 3-point attempts per 100 possessions. McCain was up around like 11 or 12 on like 3 to 4 points higher percentage. John Jenkins and Frank Jackson were the only others to be drafted who did that in their freshman year, both multi-year college guys. If we bump the height up to 6'4", let's say my what I saw in person is off or he has a growth spurt, maybe he measures in at 6'4". The list jumps to 34 players, and it includes Jamal Murray being the only other one and done guy with that statistical kind of benchmark, just looking at playmaking and scoring efficiency. Gary Harris, Victor Oladipo, Duran Lamb joined the multi-year guys. I don't think he's the type of athlete or defender that those guys are. Even when we bump up the assist rate to 20 or lower, where'd my notes go? It doesn't change. The list doesn't really change in terms of notable players. At 25, Reed Shepherd is the only other notable addition. At 35, Rob Dillingham is the only other notable addition. Freshman to get drafted in the first round at 6'3" or under with a usage rate under 18. John Jenkins, Corey Joseph, Peyton Pritchard, Marcus Sasser, Emmanuel Quickley, Chris Dunn, Malachi Flynn, Davion Mitchell. All NBA guys, but they were all multi-year college players except for Joseph. He's a smart player. I love the scoring efficiency. Players of his, with his resume and his tape and his impact, almost never get drafted in the first round as one and done freshmen.
Look, I have to give you like a hat tip to you, sir. That was incredible. You were in your bag there. I have to like, this is there's people out there that love Jase. That's fine. That's completely I get it, but
I'm intrigued. I like his game next year.
I like him next year, or I would like him early second round. I'll tell like I got a text last night from someone in the league, and it was funny because I'm prepping for this pod, and it was literally what am I missing with Jase Richardson? I don't see it, and I was like, oh, what timing? It's just like what perfect timing. So it's not just it is a talented player, but I struggle with these guys. That's like, well, what is the elite skill? Like, what are we going to say? Is efficiency? It's like, well, okay. We're starting to see the more the minutes have climbed, the more questions have started to come into the picture. And we felt this was going to happen eventually. It's like, okay, if he's going to be this efficient for a while, they're going to have to play him heavy minutes. Mm-hmm. Like they're going to have to see if, do we potentially have a superstar like that we're just not playing enough? And the first game, it was like, oh my gosh, he's going to be unleashed. And now we've had 3 straight games where it's like, oh, okay, here we go. Now he could bounce back and we could still see like promising stuff, but like Metcalf, you're what? We've been in Portland and Vegas together. You're 6'3". You texted me right away. You texted me right away that you were, I mean, you texted me right away when you saw him in person. You're like, he's small. I was like, well, if you're 6'3"-ish, that's not a good sign if you're telling me he's small. So
I'm like in shoes, I'm like 6'1", and he was about my height.
Yeah, so we're thinking measuring 6'1.5". Like, if we're putting that out, if that's going to be the number,
again, hypothetically, because we don't hate on short guards necessarily, but you have to create for others. There has to be some sort of playmaking or on-ball creation or something. You can't be. I'm okay with 6'3" guards. We just talked about Fears, who's I'd be surprised if he's 6'4". I would guess more 6'2", 6'3" range. But there's playmaking. He's not just an off-ball play finisher at this point.
I 100% agree. Like, he doesn't have that, like, I'm hanging my hat on this skill. And, like, you can say he's bombing threes. You can say, okay, what happens when those don't go in? Like, what my big thing with scouting is, what do you do when what you think is your best ability isn't there? Because teams are going to try to take that away. And I don't know with Jase. It's not like, I'll probably get some arguments about this, but, like, I don't think he's a lockdown great defender.
No, neither do I.
Anywhere close to that.
Like, I think there are flashes of really good compete level, some high IQ stuff, a lot of lazy fouls, a lot of ball watching. The footwork and, like, on ball and isolation stuff is good, but when you throw a screen or, is the USC or UCLA game, he got back cut like 4 times in a row.
And
are you going to hide him as the low man? Over?
That's what I'm saying. If you're undersized, you better be able to at least hold your own defensively. Like, you better not be able to be played off the court, and you better shoot the crap out of it.
And I think he will be able to hold his own in time.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you have to, like, that has to be where you're bringing it all the time. Isn't that Fred VanVleet said that? He's like, if you're going to be undersized and play point guard in this league, you have to shoot the crap out of it. And you've got to, I think he said defense, but like jokes aside, I think there's a lot of questions with Jase. I would just love another year from him because I think even with his smaller height, like if his body filled out a little bit, like you can make up a little bit there. If the game slows down, I think there's a better, route, but it's just, he's a guy I'd love to be 6'4" and be like, oh, I would take him 25th and he'd be an awesome piece, like alongside, like you're saying, with like a star like Cade Cunningham or guys like that, where you're like, hey, he's not the guy, but he's a great piece off the ball. He's smart. I still love him in like transition and stuff. He knows where to be on the court, like fill in his lanes, spacing it out. Like there's a lot of good stuff. It's just, I'm not buying top 20.
Yeah, and like I still have him in my 20s. I have him late first. So like that 27
I have him
to 35 range.
Yeah, I have him like 30, 31, I think. Like I'm there. I like him. I have a ceiling on it.
I don't know if he can play point guard because we've never seen it. And we get some occasional flashes. In their last game, he had this really gorgeous driving kick where he looked off the weak side defender, kind of sent him towards the corner shooter. He jumped out of bounds and kicked it to the top of the key. Really nice play. But we kind of get those like once every 4 games. And I just need to see more from him in terms of responsibility and creativity and craft and processing. And that's kind of why I wanted to pair him with Fears, because they've both had their ups and downs. Fears has been awful in terms of scoring efficiency this year, or like this calendar year. So this last 6 weeks, sub 42 effective field goal rate, but we're still seeing the playmaking. We're still seeing the processing, and he has so much on his plate. And Jase has had some incredible games, like that Oregon game. He was insanely good, but he's also the third guard in terms of responsibility level. And we're just not having to see him do even a sliver of what NBA guards are asked to do. I think he's really smart. I think he has really good feel. I think there's some real upside there with the shot making and stuff, but there are pieces that I can see obviously translating to the NBA eventually. I'm not totally convinced that going this year is the best opportunity for him. Whereas if he returned and went back to Michigan State as a sophomore, he'd probably be a preseason top 20, top 15 guy for me, especially if he is put more in that, just run the offense, dictate how things go, run more of that primary pick and roll action, manipulate second or third level defenders a little bit, make more than one, cross court skip pass to an open shooter, make more than just one every 2 weeks. There are flashes of that kind of stuff, but right now the vast majority of his tape is that of what we typically see from more traditional 6'5", 6'6" shooting guards.
Well said. The minutes have climbed and the concerns have also come with it, and the numbers have gone down. Like you usually don't see it that way. It's usually like, oh, the stats look better when you get to play more. The numbers have gone down. Like I think it's just one of those players that was so efficient and effective. We're like, okay, they got to see more, and then now we're seeing more, and we're like, oh, okay, there's a lot more that needs to be untapped. I think the in between game still is like needing to be found. Like I think he's got to learn how to put guys in jail. Like
you're talking about like creation in that area.
Yes.
Like the floater, the mid range pull up, like the shot itself, I don't have any worries.
No. Yeah, I'm talking about just like understanding how to set up defenses, driving kicks, like understanding like let me have them react and go this way. Like there's a lot of drives which he doesn't look like he knows what to do, and it's kind of like trying to go force a foul, and it's like, okay, you're undersized, you're probably not gonna win that battle a lot because it's not like your Ja Morant's athleticism. He's just got to. It looks like someone that needs the game to slow down just a little bit in that area.
And the best place to do that isn't riding the bench in the NBA.
Right.
It's playing.
Or in the G League. I promise. It's probably at Michigan State for another year, and that's fine. But I would still not. It's also the classic, like, he goes and tests the waters and looks unbelievable at the combine. Like, somehow decides to play and looks unbelievable, and I'm like, here we go. Because
it wouldn't shock me.
It wouldn't shock me.
Because in those shooting drills, he'll probably shoot 90%.
Yeah, he'll look great there. I just keep saying, like, this is the type of guy I would want if I was a playoff team. If I don't have a lot of holes on my roster, and this is like the type of guy I could get, like, ooh, this could be a nice piece that just understands how to play. We don't need to feed him a lot of touches, and then we'll see what we have. But at least we have a nice rotation piece. I get that. But if you're trying to overdraft him,
like if I'm Orlando, like if I'm Orlando with the 25th pick, that'd be really interesting to me.
Yeah, as my second first, they got 2 firsts this year. Yeah,
that one's from Denver, so
they have 2 firsts, though, right? Yeah,
I think so.
Yep, I know this because I've been doing all the graphics, and I always have to make 2 Magic ones. Yep,
yeah, they're 60 and 25.
Yeah, so I love that idea. We mocked them to Boston in one of our mocks at No Ceilings. Like,
Clippers are 29. You know, it's those.
They'll never play him.
Well, that's because
another guy they'll never play. Him, Kobe Brown, and Jordan Miller can just all hang out together. I understand what you're saying, like, but I wouldn't be wanting to, like, draft them if, I'm, Brooklyn.
Yeah,
I guess they have 5 picks, so maybe.
Yeah, it depends. It depends what they do with them.
I was looking at the teams in the top 10, and I was like, well, like Chicago, or I know we had some fans in the chat. Miami. I don't think he makes. I like Fears more to Miami, but I don't know.
But we talked about some of the feedback that we got on Fears, and a lot of what I've heard, from the scouts I've talked to, which obviously isn't every team, but it was excitement in terms of projection and upside. Jase was a mixed bag more. I had a couple like, not for me. A couple, I like him next year. Like, there are tools there. I really like what he's kind of showing, but needs a little more refinement. And then a couple of that, who kind of had that same vibe, but like we're like, late first. I can see it too. So there are a lot of tools. I think the intangibles with him are really, really impressive, in terms of work rate, motor, IQ, awareness, all that kind of stuff. I just think that the things that he needs to improve on are best improved on with reps in college, where he's actually playing and kind of being thrown into the fire.
This is my favorite time of the year because it is, everyone's trying to pick the minds of everyone. Like, you're trying to, and it's a cool thing because you're trying to, like, hey, open a door for me that I can't see. And a lot of times I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I don't see it either, or I agree. And there's also plenty of times where I'm like, I've got all the doors open. How many, but a lot of people don't see eye to eye on guys this time of the year, and you're trying to figure out why, and you're making sure you do your homework. And Jase is one that I think even our Hold No Ceilings team the other day, it was just like, I guess this is the Jase Richardson day, and everyone was just cooking on comments. We were like, whoa, like it's fun. So that's what we love about those talks, and talking with anyone in the scouting community is like, you like when you get fired up about a prospect because you're like, yeah, let's talk about it. Like, I'm struggling with him too,
And he's got a couple big tests here to kind of finish up the season. Again, 2 games against Michigan. So if he can really show up in those, boost those numbers against top 50 competition, which have not been good, it'll go a long way. And if he can have a big March, kind of recover from this slump that Michigan State has been in, at least before that Illinois game, it do wonders for him. So I like him long term. If he's in this year, I think about him in the mid to late 20s, but we'll see.
Yeah, he would be a puzzling one. It would be very interesting. I'm sure he's going to look great in workouts, like shooting it, like you said. He'd be a very, very interesting one to kind of monitor the buzz. I could also see, like, the buzz just being quiet. Like, was McCain last year? Like, we were like, why is no one talking about McCain? Like, why is this the one guy that's not buzzing at all? There's always that one guy. You're like, why is there no buzz about him? They're like, no one's talking about him.
And McCain
either
was
way.
a polarizing one too.
Yeah. But McCain rebounded, and McCain was having.
I thought
McCain's year was awesome.
I thought we had more playmaking stuff. I think
I loved this film.
Yeah,
I was like, what are we all doing right now?
Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
That's enough, Jase Richardson. We like him. Hopefully that didn't come across too negative, but let's take our last ad break, and then we'll wrap up with Hugo Gonzalez. All right, finishing up with Hugo Gonzalez, 6'6" Spanish wing for Real Madrid. Funky role, minimal minutes here and there. Where do you want to start?
Now, if you're listening to this, you're watching on YouTube, you're probably like, okay, this is a good time I can stop. No, you need to buckle up because Hugo, there's some thoughts here. I think I'm buying. I think I'm back in. One of my most important scouting tips I've ever got that I always have to remind myself this year is just like, don't focus on just this year. What was going on before this year? NBA teams always love the full evaluation. And it's so easy to focus on now. But I always am like, I have to remember before. I think there's going to be a lot of surprise by people about how much teams will like Hugo. And I go back and watch like the Adidas Next Generation tournament, which everyone should remember was like Traore went nuts. Yakchonis was buzzing. Yegor Demin was with Hugo, and man, Hugo, so much fun. We've talked about it, Metcalf, on those summer pods we did, like talking about, FIBA play and stuff. We loved Hugo then. Like you turn on the old stuff and you are quickly reminded of why you love the player. You're like, oh man, look when the confidence is rolling and he's just like released to go wild. And I think I'm slowly buying back in. I've watched his recent stuff too, and it's fine. Like I think the shot's looking better. Mm-hmm. It's so tough when you watch guys on teams like this because, they missed 2 shots and you're like, oh, there goes the game because they're not going to play that much. They're not going to get that many looks. So you kind of like, oh man, it looked good. It looked good. Just they didn't go in. And you're like, well, I guess on to the next tape. But I still like a lot of his stuff. I still think like there's good wiggle. It just looks like a young guy that's playing for a really damn good team.
Yeah, and he's just kind of in this role of, hey, go spot up in the corner. And it's tough because that's not the player I ever kind of envisioned him being.
Right.
But then you look at that Real roster and it's like, well, he's not getting playmaking or ball handling responsibilities over anyone here. So it's like, hey, I appreciate you giving him 15 minutes every now and then. But
they kept showing names. Like I didn't look up the roster at first. I was just like turning on the film to watch it. And then you just keep seeing names pop up and you're like, him too? He's on the team too? It's like, I always say his name wrong. Who's the old Denver Nuggets point guard, little guy? Campanza?
Facundo Campazzo.
Facundo. And then Garuba's on the team.
Yeah, they have Hazonia, Campazzo, Zanan Musa, Walter Tavares, Gabriel Deck, Serge Ibaka, Eli Ndiaye, Hugo, Usman Garuba, Bruno Fernando, Dennis Smith Jr.
You're like, thank you for playing 15 minutes a night.
Yeah. So it's like when he does get minutes, it's like, oh, he very easily could be getting 30, the Dame Sarr treatment with Barcelona where he gets 2 minutes once a month. But I think the kind of idealized version is more of what we saw with him with Spain during like FIBA U18. And you look at just kind of like the possession distribution with Real compared to Spain, and it's so totally different. Where at Real, 36.3% of his possessions are spotting up and inconsistent shooter, not ideal. With Spain, that was at 20.5%. With Real, 17.6% of his possessions are running the pick and roll, 18.6 with Spain. Transition was 12.1% with Real, 16.8 with Spain, and like running off screens in more of an off-ball role to kind of create getting downhill. Only 3.3% of his possessions, 3 total possessions with Real Madrid have come in that fashion compared to 10.6% with Spain. So
throw me one more time. I missed the number. What is his spot up with Real Madrid
36.3
compared to Spain?
20.5.
Whoa. So like that's immediately one of my favorite developmental arguments right there. It's like, so he's working on probably like one of his weaker parts of his game. I think the shot looks better. Clearly they're trying to like hammer that home of like, yeah, the spot up looks better. You know, he was such a wizard when he was with like Spain in those FIBA games, like with the ball in his hands. And you see a couple sequences where he gets that and it's almost got like, there's like lightning running through his body where he's just like, here we go. Like, this is where I'm so comfortable. Going back, here's a question for you. Like what he played with Jaeger on that Adidas Next Generation tournament. Would you have said he's a better prospect than Jaeger?
Yeah.
Zeman, who's at BYU right now, for everyone that's trying to get caught up. So how good would we, like, where would we have Hugo right now if he was playing in college? That's what gets me like rolling right now, where I'm like, I'd probably be having Hugo top 10 pretty easily.
Yeah. And obviously, depends what he's doing, but
I just thought he was a better prospect, and he's got more burst. He's got a little bit more.
And like some of the stuff, like with him getting downhill with the footwork and balance and spin moves and physicality, when he's aggressive and gets downhill, it looks good. It looks encouraging. I feel like we've seen a singular percentage of the playmaking stuff that we saw with him with Spain. And some of the passing stuff has been pretty bad. But it's just so inconsistent when he gets the ball. It's like, all right, he makes one mistake and he's done for the half. And it's tricky because a lot of the Spain film is really rough. Or a lot of the Jesus. A lot of the Spain film is very fun. But it's all him kind of using that speed and athleticism and motor in the open court and getting downhill and being aggressive. And we're not getting any of that consistently with Real.
Something to keep an eye on for all fans is like Eurobasket's going on. So qualifiers. So they had their first game Spain did today, and it was like, oh, maybe Hugo's gonna get a little more run. He had 11 and 6 in 17 minutes, 2 for 5 from the field, 7 for 7 from the line. So I mean, it's always tough evaluating international guys on stacked rosters because you're like, man, how do I get excited about 8 minutes a game and four points a game and like just very minimal film to go off of? But I think that's why you have to like the previous evaluation, like what were they before? What do they look like? And a lot of times those really good teams are the best possible thing for their development. Like I know people are like, why wouldn't you just have them rather be playing a lower D1 and playing 30 minutes a game? And it's like, well, we just listed the roster he's on. He's practicing with those guys every day. He's picking their minds. So sometimes that's just a fantastic asset for him. So I think Hugo's going to be one of those players too. It's just going to be like releasing him into the wild, and he's going to have like, okay, I'm ready to run. I would be thinking Metcalf, he's going to be one of those names that shocks people about how much he's buzzing during the pre-draft process.
Yeah, like it wouldn't shock me if he like dominates the Euro combine or the Euro camp that they have pre-draft. Like I know a lot of NBA scouts kind of lean a little more, and especially in these situations where a guy's barely playing, they lean a little more on the prior film and prior samples, and we just kind of have to go off flashes right now. What I worry about with him long term is that whatever team takes him kind of gives him the Denny Avdia treatment, where early in his career, where he's not a spot up shooter, but that's kind of all they use him as, and they don't empower him in the open court. They don't let him, run off screens or DHOs to get downhill and create for others and utilize some of those tools and athleticism. Now, he's not quite as big as Denny, but stylistically, I think there are a lot of kind of overlaps there. Defensively, where are you at? Because I've been pretty frustrated and kind of let down and disappointed overall.
A little bit there. It seems like he has the right idea of what he's supposed to do. It's just like a step or half a step slow. Like, was it a recent game they watched? I was watching the recent game, and he had a couple like ticky-tack fouls, but it was like rotations where he knew where he was supposed to go to help, and then it was just like he was a split second slow. So I was like, you're just, the timing's got to be quicker. Like the processing has to be just a split second faster. I think it's just a young guy. Like I really, he's going to be physical. Yeah, go ahead.
No.
He's going to be physical. He's going to be athletic. Like we've seen his competitiveness before. I think it's just tough to we talked about this in the beginning of the year with Hugo. It's like, you're going to go from the guy to limited minutes. Like, how can you adjust to that? How can you got to adjust to being effective without like the ball in your hands all the time. I think now he's still trying to figure out like that part, especially defensively too. Like you got to be, when you're in, like motors at high because you're trying to earn more minutes. So what bugged you or what's frustrating you the most with like the defense?
It's mostly the on-ball stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think the team defense, like you were kind of talking about, has been encouraging where, solid awareness, willing to make those rotations. Are they perfect? Are they always on time? No. But the intent seems to be there. The processing seems to be there. The on-ball stuff has been, I think, kind of bad. Where it's like screen navigation is rough. He gets really happy feet, and it's like a little head fake into a crossover, into a step back, and he's 7 feet the other direction. And then especially these last couple weeks, he's been giving up like really drastic angles, like on drives, and letting guys kind of like, he's just giving guys way too much space, and like opening his hips and his body up too much and allowing guys to get to their spots way too easily. So it's not stuff that's impossible to fix, but it's going to get you yanked from an NBA floor real quick.
Yeah, I know the screen navigation, I know what you mean, because it kind of bugged me at one point. I was like, it's always tough. It's always tough with those teams because I'm like, especially the international ones, are like, are you teaching this? Like, are you specifically trying to get it so like they don't come back? Because sometimes he looks like he's like stopping once he gets like stuck. I'm like, it's not that good of a screen. Like, why are you just sitting there? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, keep going, like keep moving. And it's almost like he's holding like it. So I don't know if that's some weird thing. Like it's something I'll look into, but I know what you mean. Like it kind of bugged me at first. I was like, you're way quicker and more athletic than this. Like, why are you looking like you're
why do you keep running directly into the guy's chest?
It's like you're running into a wall and stopping.
Staying there. Like, it's like, oh well, move. Here we are.
So no, it's funny you pointed that out because when you were talking about that, I was like, yes, I remember like the first game I watched. I was like, what is he doing? Like,
yeah,
I've never seen this from. So I don't know. I mean the off balls. It's a weird one because I'm like, well, if you're going off of what you've seen before, you're gonna be still very smitten on him as a prospect. Mm-hmm. Like that's where I'm imagining NBA teams still are gonna be. If you've got multiple picks, you should jump all over him with one of them. Yeah. Like Brooklyn Nets fans should be very much wanting Hugo with one of those picks. But if you're gonna be watching limited film this year, you're gonna be like, I am not in on Hugo at all. But you watched them before, you should be like, oh man, I remember what there is with this kid, and he's got the tools to be special.
Yeah, I would imagine he still goes top 20 at least. Lottery wouldn't shock me. It'd be a little rich for me. Mm-hmm. I'm not there. I'm more that kind of 20-ish to back half of the first round. But
Yeah.
if I'm OKC, if I'm Brooklyn, if I have multiple picks and I'm not expecting anything from him rookie year, I get a little more eager.
Orlando?
Yeah.
They still have PTSD from Super Mario, Hazonia? I think that's a team that, like, there's teams that could be sneaky and be like, we've got 2 picks. Let's snag Hugo here. We love him. He had a great work. OKC is going to be, we're just going to mention OKC is every draft moving forward.
I mean, they own half of the next decade in terms of draft picks, so we kind of have to.
But I'd love him there.
Yeah, because guys like Aaron Wiggins and Kenrick Williams and Isaiah Joe, they're all obviously different players, but they're going to get priced out of them eventually. So you kind of have to keep replacing, the Lou Dorts, Alex Caruso's. You have to kind of keep replacing those guys. And a good, cheap way to do it is draft high upside guys, develop them, get them in your system, and do it that way, especially once you get Chet, J-Dub, Shea on super maxes.
Well, people need to remember, like, Hugo, like, it's tough for people because fans that are getting caught up in the draft, like, you don't have that quick, and maybe I need to cut up some old stuff, but you don't have that quick, like, Hugo dunks on people and like screams at the top of his lungs. Like, he has fire. He's very exciting player. Like, there's some stuff where you're like, going back to like the previous years, there's some stuff where you're like, this guy's fun. Like, it's a little bit of like he plays like a prick in a good way, where you're just like, he's got bounce, he's got nastiness. So it's tough when you get stuck on our bench and you're not getting able to showcase some of that stuff. But yeah, it's just one of those. I'm making my rounds now on a lot of the international guys where I'm like, okay, let's revisit this. It happens every year with some prospects. Got a couple more of those guys that I got to be like, okay, let's scrap everything and start all over because they give me headaches.
All right. Anything else on Hugo?
No, I mean, where would you take him? Where do you have him right now?
I will give you a number. I have him at 22 in a tier that goes up to 19.
You and your tiers. 2025, the year of Metcalf's tiers.
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
it's smart. I can't.
They're not massive tiers. It's just, groupings of like 5 guys where it's like, kind of depending on team and how the board falls.
I respect it.
Look at.
Respect everyone that does tiers. I just am a big, like, my tier will change completely if I knew what team he's on. So yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well, that means it is time for the most exclusive club in the NBA draft world, the No Ceilings Green Room. It's all about vibes. Only 14 get in, no more. It is not our lottery rankings, potential production vibes, all that good stuff. Currently in the club, we have Cooper Flagg, Trey Johnson, Derek Queen, Dylan Harper, Kasparis Yakashonis, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, and Asa Newell. Anyone need to get booted?
I don't think so. You?
I think Asa needs to go.
He just got in. We're putting him back in line.
We might be sending him home.
Wow. Why? Why is everyone getting out on him? And why is it's going to be like me and Asa against the world?
What has he gotten better at this year?
I think you just know what he is.
And you're pumped about that?
I do. I am.
Okay.
He's going to be a 6'10" with, like, I think the shot eventually will come around. He's going to be a 6'10", like,
I do buy the shot.
A smart player that I just like his. I think he's got a higher floor than people think. I think the body needs to fill out a little bit. It's just, I think this is going to be a player we're going to look and be like, maybe he's going to play a long time. But I don't like your vibes, so we'll send him home. No, I'm not gonna. This is a 2-man.
No, exactly. So I know, because I
okay.
want to talk about the defense, and
You and the defense.
It feels like, sorry, it's half the game. And for a guy his size with his athleticism, I was hoping for a lot more. And it
Right.
feels like he's almost regressed on that end from what we saw at Montford, where he was really moving his feet in space, switching a lot of stuff. And I feel like it's just this year. Like, it's not bad. Like, he's not a bad defender. I just want more. Is that am I did I set my expectations on that end too high? And am
Yes.
I okay?
I think anyone playing with Cooper Flag and Queen, I know they rotated. I know he got moments where he was just a guy. We're also probably still a little drunk on like Derek Lively posts, like how awesome he looked. And
No, but I was thinking he was going to be more of like a perimeter wing defender playing the 4 who could switch on to threes and stuff. I never expected him to be like a true rim protecting center. I was always hoping for more of the kind of weak side stuff, big time off ball team, all around team defender who could, switch on ball in the pick and roll and stuff. And I've been left wanting in that realm.
I thought he was always going to be more of like an offensive higher. Like I thought he was going to be the offensive version. Like, oh, I'm liking his ability on that side of the ball. And then I'm hoping the defense develops, comes along with it where like he's at least a shot blocker. And then hopefully the game slows down and he can switch a little bit. I just like a lot of stuff he does. I think, is that the best fit for him right now? Like the team?
Yeah, that's fair.
And I don't slander. It's just like, hey, we're watching Ace Bailey, and I'm like, I wish they had a 7-footer that could not make Ace Bailey. Like I watched it last night against Washington. I'm like, he's guarding their center. He's the biggest guy on the court for them right now. I was like, I wish he had a little bit more beef around him. So I don't know. I like Asa. I guess I'm still figuring out that too of like, am I just loving him as like a potential alongside a 5? Like
I'd love that. Well, especially if the shot develops,
right?
Which I think it will.
I think it will. I think
it'll, they can pop, corner 3 type stuff. But okay, we can leave him in.
Okay.
For now, but,
no. We need to take him out. I can't.
Nope,
I can't keep him in. I can't keep him in.
I'm sending the table around.
I'll make you a deal. I fought for him this one time. If he doesn't have
give
movement,
him a week.
We give him a week.
All right.
He's on the watch.
All right. Outside,
choppers in the sky, birds in the sky.
Outside in line, we have Rasheer Fleming, Danny Wolf, Carter Bryant, Miles Bird, Thomas Sorber, Jase Richardson. Come on, Malawatch. Who do you want to nominate?
There's no way we can keep Richardson in line.
No, see,
after this episode.
No, I want him in line because if he goes off in these games against Michigan,
okay,
he's going in.
So me and you are just not agreeing tonight. This is gonna be a rough one.
Typically, the segment takes a couple minutes, and we might be going long.
Fleming, Malawatch, Danny Wolf. Who were my other ones?
Carter Bryant, Miles Bird, Sorber. Anyone need to get removed? The line can go on forever.
No, I don't know about booted. Who is there anyone for you that's gonna need to get booted?
I don't think so.
I need Sorber to get hot again.
Yeah,
I keep waiting for him to get hot because I want him to declare because I'm very fascinated about his pre-draft.
Yeah,
but I'm scared. I'm Tyler Rucker. I'm scared.
All right, who do you want to nominate for line?
I don't know. You have any names? Any names?
Every
time I'm doing this, I try to get my list up. My list just goes down the drain.
This is tough.
It gets a little tough. You know what? I will.
Do we put Chad Baker Mazzara in just to see if he starts to fight or not?
That was a good one. That was a good one. I'm going to nominate. Con Knipple.
Damn it, that was gonna be my name too.
I haven't checked. Now I'm going off of like a previous look. It might be wrong from when I last looked. So I'm kind of stalling right now to talk about it. But the last time I looked at his recent numbers, I said Con Knipple is slowly waking up, and no
He's
one's
been playing really well.
knowing it. Like the numbers were way better than I thought. I was like, Con's getting on a little. I think he's back, and so I'm gonna nominate him from the line or for the line, and then you can give me who you're thinking while I find. Of course, he had a couple stinkers, but I think they're blowing up people. So it's his last 8 games. He's 14-5 with 1.4 steals a game on 45, 40, 90, basically. And I started the year as a con guy. A con man. I've slowed down that love, and I'm just starting to be like, okay, maybe I'm not all the way back in, but I might, couple shares. You're in?
10.
Wait. You have him back at 10?
Yeah.
What changed? We did like a whole episode where you were like, I'm out.
Yeah, and then it's like, man, if you play a point guard with him, this gets a lot more fun a lot more quickly because he doesn't have to do a lot of the shit that he's having to do. So
you joined the Duke Needs a Point Guard club. Someone, I believe there's a founding member in our No Ceilings chat. There's a
I think Duke joined the We Need a Point Guard club. I'm really encouraged with like the way that he operates like second side stuff, and I buy the shot.
I think he's figuring it
really
out.
Strong. So
yeah, okay.
Also going to put in line. I'm not nominating him to go in because I'm a little lower on him, but Liam McNeely has had a hell of a week.
I was just thinking while I was talking about Con, I was like, is McNeely not in line or in?
Yeah, so I'm putting him in line. He has had a heck of a week. He deserves to be in line. So who do you want to put in?
I'm telling you, man, I think the McNeely thing, I think people are going to start waking up a little bit on it. Like Corey had me see the light. I really like McNeely. I think there's a little bit more with this game. Like, let's give these kids time to figure it out. Like, in line,
currently we have Fleming, Wolf, Carter Bryant, Miles Bird, Thomas Sorber, Jase Richardson, Malawach, Conan, Liam.
I'd probably go Malawach or Liam.
I'll go Malawach.
I'm starting to see the light a little bit with Malawach.
Yeah.
I went back and watched a little bit of his old stuff too, and I was like, okay, I remember now the shot. I get it. Shooting touch is much better than I thought. He's got trees for arms, tree vines.
Yeah, he's fucking huge.
Gigantic person that can shoot is always usually pretty tough to deal with.
Yeah.
What if he gets drafted and is like Victor's kryptonite? That would be the best like rivalry ever. Come on, Malawach meets Victor Wembanyama. That's a good one. Malawach gets in there. He's going to be the biggest person in the club. People are probably going to have to be like, hey, is that a bouncer or is he here to have a good time? Maybe both. So I think he's going to keep everyone, not just like the green room, but like whoever else is in there, on their toes. Maybe even the workers. I think this is a good one.
Come on, Malawach. Welcome to the club. We're now up to 9 in there. And we will continue to update going forward. But Rucker, this was a good one. Got a little fiery. Thanks to everyone in the chat watching live. Hit that subscribe button, that like button, all that all those little things help us out a ton. We love you guys. Appreciate you all. But if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and 5-star rating. Until next time, see ya.